because I was the other day I was looking at some videos about rappers who like allegedly fell off and stuff, and one of them was an incident between Tory Lanez and Roddy Ricch, where Roddy Ricch tweeted about Tory Lanez biting his style, and then Tory Lanez got upset and was like, I'm a phone call away, blah blah blah. So how do you feel about when rappers are like, why are you on Twitter talking about XYZ? You could have texted me. Do you think that is valid, or do you think it depends on their relationship? Like, because that seems to be the go-to, like, bro, like, why didn't you text me this shit? Like, you just want clout.
Yeah, I do. I really think that one depends on the relationship. Like, truly. Like, if there's any kind of, even if it's like a passing, but we've spoken to each other on a one-on-one basis, I do think that deserves like a reach out text. Like, yo, like, can we talk? Because like, this isn't sitting well with me. But if it's like, I don't know you from anyone, you're just another person on social media, bro, it's fair game to me, right? Like, I remember like there was a lot of like these allegations like with Fabulous and like Mace, and like Lloyd Banks and Mace. I mean, I think everyone at some point stole Mace's flow, to be perfectly honest, from New York. And like Fabulous was offended by like Mace not reaching out to him, but I'm fine with it if there's no relationship. But if there is a relationship, there should be some, at least like not saying like a olive branch, but just like questions in private, and then you can take it from there. What do you think?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I would say if this is someone that you would normally text or have enough of a relationship to speak to call up and have it be normal, then
yeah, if your number's on in my phone, you should be able to text before I read it on Twitter. Like,
right. But if they're insinuating, hey, you could have got your manager to figure out my manager and go through all these fucking loopholes just to be like, hey, I think that song was biting my style, then no, fuck it, I'm gonna go to my IG story or something.
Correct. But dude, that's a good segue, because I think you found online, what was Academics talking about? Like the top 10 rappers who he thinks have fallen off in the last, like, do you have a list in front of you?
Yeah, I have the list. And to be clear, I definitely don't think Academics created it. I think it was just going viral.
Got it. Okay.
But I have the list here. So top 10 rappers, and this is in order apparently. But number 1, Bobby Shmurda. 2, Quando Rondo. 3, Lil Baby. 4, NBA Youngboy. 5, Rich Homie Quan. 6, Lil Pump. 7, Designer. 8, DaBaby. 9, Roddy Ricch. And 10, Meek Mill.
Okay, so we'll get into the list in a second. Do you have any honorable mentions you would add to the list? Like, if you were making this like a top 15, who would you add?
Painfully, I would add Fetty Wap for sure.
Yes.
Who else? Damn. I mean, that one was just so blatantly obvious. I was like, how'd that not make the list?
Well, I think the only reason, this is why we'll get into like, obviously, because I'm glad you brought this topic up, because I feel like it's niche enough like for us to talk about. But I think this one's a difficult topic to kind of truly dive into from multiple angles, because like falling off means what though, right? Were you like the man at one point and then you're just not that anymore? Or did you just really have like a nice little run and then it just never happened for you after, right? Like, I feel like there's levels to what a fall off truly is, because I feel like the fall off for Little Baby compared to the fall off for Little Pump is completely different, right? It should be viewed very differently. So I think it's very like interesting how you interpret that. I do have a couple more names, and you let me know what your thoughts are. G-Eazy is one for me.
Yeah.
If you would say fall off. I think Wale has fallen off, right? Like, it depends what you think of Wale, right? If you think of him as like a backpack rapper that he's just happy to be around, then maybe he didn't fall off in your eyes, you know?
Right.
I think Little Skies has fallen off. Even though I know he's on the new Lyrical Lemonade album, but I think he's fallen off, to be perfectly honest. I think YG has fallen off, right? I think he's just like another West Coast rapper that honestly, like, I don't think anyone really takes him seriously in music in general, right? Like, I don't think he's disrespected, but it's almost like no one's really checking for YG music.
I think YG's tough to say. I'm a little hesitant with him just because I know in California, well, maybe LA at least, like he's still
beloved.
Yeah, beloved, like kind of like Tyga, like people will go crazy at a concert if he's there. But in the grand scheme of like the mainstream conversation, I feel like he's not present really at all.
Correct. That's like that's what I'm talking about, right? So like I think these guys still have like a niche market. Like I think they still like they're gonna still make money off hip hop, but it wasn't to the level it was prior. And then the last one on my list was Wiz. I think Wiz, to a certain extent, has fallen off, right? If you think about Wiz at its peak, right? Dude, there's nothing there. He hasn't been at that level in close to 15 fucking years, right?
Mhm.
Like, so it's like I would think that's a fall off. But those are just some honorable mentions. But we can just focus on the list itself. So
Yeah.
from the list, do you agree with the order it's in?
Um, I can already say no. It's added to that. I think the tricky thing too is like, I mean, you kind of already alluded to it, but do any of these rappers actually want to be on top? Because, like, for
Mm,
instance, Wiz, I feel like he just wants to smoke weed and like make mixtapes and do whatever fucking other billion businesses he has.
correct.
Whereas, like, Roddy Rich very clearly was trying to like
Be the
put out
guy.
an album, be the guy,
Yeah.
yeah, and it just
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah, yeah,
landing.
yeah. Dude, but this is a side note. But do you think the reason why I had Wiz there is 'cause I agree with you. I think he just wants it. I think he's doing exactly what he wants to be doing, bro.
Uh,
But do you think like the only reason why I say he's fallen off because I do think his day one fans are disappointed. Like I don't think they're
Hmm.
happy with the quality of music they're getting from him, bro. And like I'll throw myself into that, right? Like bro, I
Yeah,
remember
you could throw
mixtapes.
me in there too.
You know what I mean? Like when his shit drops, I'm just like, bro, this is lazy, dog. Like this is not what you were giving us 14 years. And again, I'm not saying keep doing that, but if you're gonna stick to a niche market, you would think you at least keep that sound, right? Like I don't know. I struggle with him because like, bro, at my core, I love him to death still. But I'm like, bro, none of this shit that you drop, I'm even remotely excited about.
Yeah, no, I that is a good point. And it kind of proves that it's almost it's very difficult to find an objective way to say like, all right, this person fell off,
Right.
and it depends how far too, not just did they fall off, but did they fucking crash land at the bottom of a ditch.
So for this list, then out of those 10, who would you be, in your opinion? We'll use the same names, but who's the top three?
Top three, Bobby Shmurda, um,
No, for
Roddy
you though.
Rich.
I'm saying for
For
you.
me,
Okay. Yeah, for
just in
you.
general,
Yeah, like if you had to do the list in order, who would be your top three out of that list that's fallen off the hardest?
I would say Fetty Wap, um, Fetty Wap, Designer, and uh, Rich Homie Quan.
Mm. Okay. And the logic behind that is what?
Fetty Wap. Well, Rich Homie Quan and Fetty Wap. I mean, you just could not escape them. They were
Mm.
at the top of the charts 24/7, and like it was blatantly clear that they were seen as people who are going to be around damn near forever, at least on the charts and working with people left and right, and they just
Yeah.
fell off the face of the earth. Um, and I just said Designer because I mean he had like I think one of the biggest songs ever and hasn't been able to make any traction whatsoever. And I follow him and see him trying so hard to land with
Mm.
something. It's just not working.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is yeah,
Like,
his fall off is crazy. Like I don't think,
Mhm.
yeah, his just goes like because it's not lack of effort, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just bro, like the audience is just not fucking with it whatsoever. Like for
Right.
whatever reason, like they're just not
Mhm.
like again, I don't know if it's just too much of the future similarities or the songs like he's a goofy ass dude, bro. And I don't know if people like want to like what mood do you have to be in to truly just dive deep into like a designer song? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's tough, bro. But that's
And then
a
it
good
doesn't
one.
help that he was caught, beating his meat on the plane or whatever.
Yeah, and then the excuse that he had for it was just like, oh, mental illness. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
you're horny as fuck. He's
Right.
like, let's see
And
what
it just
happens.
makes him look even worse. It's like you fell off, you're like a sicko, like, and then
Yeah.
no one's gonna want to take you seriously after that.
Yeah. No, I'm good with that list. So for me, if I can just using that list alone and then saying like rearranging it, I would go with number 3, Little Baby, number 2, Da Baby, and then number 1, Meek Mill. Because I truly think that, dude, what Meek Mill was when he came out of jail and dropped that album, I think what, Champs or Champions? Bro, immediate classic. Everyone's like, bro, Meek is back. Like the momentum was on his side. And for dude to go from that to now, where, bro, like dude, that Rick Ross Meek Mill album came out. No one's talking about it. Not even one song, bro. And it's just, he's a goofy ass dude. We know him more now for either dumbass comments on Twitter and Instagram or videos of him doing odd shit that you're like, what's wrong with this guy? You know what I mean? So his fall off just seems wild, right? Again, I think the baby's fall off is also crazy when you think about like what he was trajected to do, right? Like, dude, Dua Lipa songs, hits after hits, bro, from 2019 to Incident at Rolling Loud. Dude, he was probably the #1 rapper in the game, right? Bar none. Like, compare him to anyone like that time. And then Lil Baby had a run where you were like, oh shit, this guy, for whatever reason, might be the next guy up, and that just never happened, right? But I would say for Meek Mill, the fall off from what he was at his peak, which is only 3 or 4 years ago, to what he is now, I think it's a fall off where like, it's clear there's no coming back, right? It feels like Meek is just gonna be a guy who's always in hip hop, is gonna make his money here and there, and is like okay with like business options now. But as far as like you're waiting for a Meek Mill album to drop, I don't think anyone cares, bro. Like genuinely.
No, I agree. It's interesting how he became like the laughing stock of the internet in recent years. When at one point in time, like he easily was one of the most anticipated rappers that we could have imagined. Especially when he and Rick Ross and Drake and all these guys and French Montana were aligned, like they were like the Justice League in a way. And now, you know, he lived long enough to see himself kind of become the villain. Much of it his own behavior and doing, but yeah.
Yeah, just wow. And again, and I feel like it's different for certain artists, right? Because I feel like no one would ever utter those same phrases about like Rick Ross, because like Rick Ross inevitably has like a sense of like we respect him, right? Like it's more like, all right, man, like maybe like, yeah, he's just a richer, older man now. Like we're not really trying to hear him talking about moving bags anymore because we don't believe it. But like if Rick Ross pops up on a Drake verse, you're like, bro, that shit's gonna slap and I want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like it just makes sense. Whereas with Meek Mill, we're just like, bro, ain't nobody trying to hear you, dog. Like
exactly.
Like at all.
The thing is, like Rick Ross lived up to his like boss persona. So
correct.
When he pops up on a song, you're like, all right, maybe like this is his one day off where he just wants to talk his shit and disappear. And like you believe it. And whereas Meek Mill, it's like, we saw you at the white party or whatever it's called, hugged up on a bunch of billionaires, and then now all of a sudden you're doing drive-bys and whatever else. But then you're gonna go talk about prison reform tomorrow, and it's just not a believable scenario at that point.
Correct. And again, all the kudos in the world, because I do think that prison reform stuff he's trying with like Rock Nation is like the best intentions, right? So again, bro, I think he's gonna have a very successful second part of his life and career. But from the sense of like hip hop, dog, like that fall off was drastic, bro. And I truly think with him and these guys, like people have just, these fall offs are crazy because I think people legit have just moved on. Like I don't think these guys are one hit away from winning people back, right? I feel like it's literally like either like extensive amounts of hits or an album that just changes music in a certain sense. Because again, like no one's checking for Lil Baby either. And I think that the baby just feels so toxic that it's like almost like if he does drop something you like, you're like, shit like this? Like, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to fuck with this yet, kind of a thing.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to describe it. It does kind of have a controversial feeling sound to it now. Lil Baby, I saw from a mile away, I think, ever since.
Yeah, you've been on that from the beginning, bro. Like, I'll give you credit. Yeah. You were like, yo, this ain't it. I was like, no, dude, I mean, bigger than life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was a moment.
It might have been a lucky guess because Gunna, wasn't that far off. And I love Gunna now. The world seems to love him. But I think Lil Baby was just way too one-dimensional for me. And I'm like, and I think what it was the comparisons to like Drake and him surpassing Drake and shit. I'm like, Drake is infinitely more versatile than Lil Baby. And I was like, I don't see Lil Baby appealing to the younger kids for that much longer. So I think that's what
I would say in his defense, he did have it was also the features that he was being put on and he truly performed, right? Like that J. Cole feature was crazy. The Kanye and the Weeknd feature was crazy. So it's like, okay, dude, like, are we like, should we be looking at this guy differently? But then I think he gave us enough content that we're like, all right, these are maybe like one-off moments where you really showed the fuck out, but that's not who you are. You know what I mean? Like, you could jump on and give us a crazy 16 and flow, but you as an artist is these bodies of work that are at best average. You know what I mean? Like, there was multiple albums he put out from like 2020 to now that you're like, bro, there's maybe like one or two songs I truly want to hear again. For the most part, not really.